So, I have something to sort of follow up with the Scalise shooting that took place yesterday. On Fox here, it says that both parties call for the easing of political hostility after the Scalise shooting. So this is interesting. What I was saying yesterday was pretty much that Republicans should not be letting Democrats get away with this, unharmed. Not unharmed. I mean politically unharmed, because they put us through with the whole with Gabby Giffords. They put us through so much. They made they tried to demonize, and it was the New York Times. The New York Times, their whole stance now is, oh, we can't politicize. We can't blame the Democrats' rhetoric for this. But then when it was Giffords, it was a complete 180, and they said, oh, this is the result of Sarah Palin and Republicans' rhetoric. So I don't want to hear any of the, oh, don't use you can't use the rhetoric, you can't politicize it because it's just complete nonsense. I don't want to hear any of that. So that argument is not an actual argument. It's not even valid. It's nothing. So I just want to get that cleared first of all. And the whole idea that we have Republicans all calling for unity and everything, and everyone's saying, oh, don't politicize the tragedy. We're not the ones politicizing it. It was politicized to begin with because it was a political assassination attempt, multiple assassination attempts, or the much easier term that you can just use is it was terrorism. It was an act of terrorism, because terrorism, the definition of terrorism is violence that was motivated, that has a political motivation. So this clearly had a political motivation. They're not going to try and deny that anymore, even though they still kind of do. Because even though we know everything about the shooter, and we know all about how he was a big-time Bernie Sanders fan, and how he was all into the whole Democratic talking points about Russia and Trump, and he was in all of these Facebook groups, terminate the Republican Party. He was on all these Facebook groups. He had a petition to get a special counsel or a special prosecutor up because he was concerned about Trump and Russia. So this is what happens. I mean, when you have a press and you have a Democratic Party, where they come out and over again they say, and even if they don't say directly, they imply that the president is a Russian agent or he's a foreign puppet. And they say it over and over again, and people start to believe it. And if you believe that, then what's the logical answer to that? If you believe that the president is a foreign agent and nothing is being done about it, what are you going to do? You're going to take matters into your own hands, because, obviously you can't have your president being a foreign agent, right? Obviously not. So when you believe that, you're going to do some crazy stuff. And it's not just Russia, too. It's just this whole campaign of, it's like this whole culture of violence that's been created. I mean, I know it's something that I don't like to say. I don't like to say culture of violence because it sounds very left-wing. It sounds very social justice. But it's absolutely true that there has been a growing culture of violence on the left ever since the election, pretty much. I mean, they used to be pacifists. They used to be all about non-violence and peaceful protest and peaceful getting the change through peaceful means. But it's like they've completely changed on that now. After the election, after you had the Inauguration Day riots and all that, you had a new sentiment on the left that, oh, it's okay to punch our opponents because they're just Nazis. They're not actual. They're not actually people. They're just Nazis. So it's okay. It's okay to punch them. That was their reasoning, and they all said that, and it got caught on video. They actually did that, and the media just played. The media didn't even call them out. The media didn't do anything. The media could have called them out and said, oh my god, here we have all these people on the left that are saying, oh yeah, we get to punch Republicans because they're just Nazis, so we get to punch them all we want. They're all saying that. They're saying, oh yeah, violence. They're saying violence is never the answer. But when you have Republicans and right wingers, I mean, they're all just Nazis and stuff. So we can punch them all we want. They're not even people, right? They all said that. Media, totally silent. There was no. The media didn't even. In fact, a lot of people in the media agreed with them. People on BuzzFeed and Huffington Post. Not so many on more mainstream outlets like MSNBC. But when it came to, BuzzFeed, Huffington Post, all of these outlets that are really, really out there when it comes to the spectrum, very, very, very left-wing, just very out there, very crazy, or they're somehow regarded as legitimate news outlets, I don't even know how, But they were, a lot of people on there were actually in favor. They were all for the violence. They didn't care at all. So this is what happens after you have months, and even in some cases years, of all of this rhetoric. And then they come out and they say, "Oh, you can't use the rhetoric. The rhetoric isn't an excuse. You can't say that it was rhetoric that caused this." And we have Republicans in Congress that they're buying into that, and even Trump, they're all buying into the, "Oh yeah, we can't use rhetoric. We're all united and we have to stick together." And Democrats in Congress, they're all for that too. You know why they're all for that? Because it's saving them. Because they don't want to have to answer for what they've been creating. They don't want to have to answer for the culture and for all of the rhetoric and everything that they've been saying. They don't want to have to answer for that. So, of course, they go along with it and they don't say anything. They just agree and they just say the exact same things, like, "Oh yeah, we need unity, we need to stick together. We're all Americans." And they say that, and it's not like a bad thing to say. Like, I'm not gonna go after them for saying we need to be united, because like I'm all for unity. You know what I mean? I'm all for unity, but there needs to be some kind of push to make them acknowledge that, yeah, like what we've been doing has been sort of a bit crazy. And you even had, and now you have Republicans like Paul Ryan and stuff like that, where they're blaming themselves. Not blaming themselves, they're blaming just the system in general. They're all saying, "Oh yeah, we need to tone down all of the heated rhetoric." But they don't mention Democrats. They just say in general. But it's not even. It's not even at all. How can you? It's not even. The only thing that you can compare to the amount of hatred that Donald Trump has gotten by the media and by Democrats, the only thing that you can compare that to is the hate that Hillary Clinton got. But in that case, it was nowhere near as extreme, because two things. Because one, it was Democrats have the whole media, they have everything. So the anti-Trump message gets amplified way more than the anti-Hillary one. You actually have to dig for that. You have to look into the situation. If you're looking to get information against Trump, all you need to do is go on like Twitter, and it'll be all in the trending tags and the top feeds and all that. It'll be in all of those. But if you want to find anything about Hillary, you actually have to search and dig. That's the first thing. And secondly, the charges against Hillary Clinton were most of the time legitimate. I mean, what charges do they have against Donald Trump that they've been using? I mean, there are legitimate charges that you can use, but they haven't used any. You can bring up anything about how, he's wealthy. You can use these things about how, he's a wealthy guy, so maybe he doesn't connect with the rural voters, even though that's not really true. But at least use something that makes sense, because that at least makes sense, even if it's not true. But if you're gonna come out there and what they're doing is they're just coming out and saying, "Oh yeah, Trump, Russian agent, Putin puppet, he has videos. There's a video of him getting peed on by hookers in Russia." I mean, it's just nonsense. It's just, none of it makes any sense. It's just completely insane. So, with this whole thing, with just the way that Republicans are responding to this, and the way that they're sort of they're not pushing at all. I mean, after like Sandy Hook and all the school shootings, Democrats were they wasted no time blaming Republicans and then saying, "Oh, see, this is what happens when you don't pass gun control laws, when you don't pass gun reform," like whatever they like to call it. They were so quick to blame Republicans, and they were so quick to put Republicans in like a corner where they had to answer for why they didn't want to pass gun control, even though they were just shootings that happened. So they were forced to answer for that. Why can't Democrats be forced to answer for their rhetoric and what it inspires? And even more disgusting is the fact that they're still using this for their gun control agenda. That's so sick. It's so disgusting. Here they're coming out and they're saying, "Oh, you can't use the rhetoric. You can't use the rhetoric, and you can't politicize this. But we also need to pass gun control laws because of this. This is what we need. We need gun control because of this." So they're using this to pass their gun control agenda, but they're saying that you can't politicize it when it comes to the motive. And you even have the police still saying, oh, we don't know the motive. How do you not know the motive? It's right there. It's right there. It's been confirmed now that the guy, that Hodgkinson, he asked and he wanted to know who was out on the field. Was it Democrats or Republicans? He wanted to know which team was out there. So he went out there, and then he wanted it to be Republicans. He wanted to know who he was going to be shooting at, because he's a Democrat and he's a Bernie supporter and he's all for Democrat talking points. So how can you not know the motivation? The motivation is so clear. He's in these anti-Trump and anti-Republican in general Facebook groups. He's talking about Trump and Russia and about how, oh, he's a Russian agent. We need to investigate investigations. He's a Putin puppet. We need to get him out of office. He talks about all that. And then he shows up to this stadium and he goes, hey, who's out there right now? Is it Democrats or Republicans? And then he's told, oh yeah, Republicans are out there right now. And he's like, okay, perfect. And he goes out there and shoots them. The motive is so clear. The motive is so clear. And now you're going to come out and say, oh, we don't know the motive. We don't know. We're not sure. That's just a lie. It's not even just being like ignorant or wrong. It's just a straight lie. You can't not know the motive. And there are still people who will dispute the motive. And that's so disgusting. And now they're using this to push their gun control agenda. Their gun control agenda, oh, I mean, it's just so disgusting. And then they say don't politicize this, and then they use it to push their agenda even further with their whole gun control thing. I mean, it's so disgusting and it's so sick. And Donald Trump has been getting bipartisan approval for his statement. And the fact that he got bipartisan approval, that's a bad sign. Anytime there's a story that comes out and it says, oh, Donald Trump did this, this, and this, and he got bipartisan approval, that should be a bad sign, because usually bipartisan, I mean, Democrats and Republicans are almost the same at this point. I mean, Republicans are, for the most part, just Democrats with a little bit of a smile on their face, who sort of will maybe throw you a bone every now and then. They're pretty much the same, though, when it comes to Congress. So when he gets bipartisan support, that's not a good sign. That's a bad sign. That's a sign that that's not something that you want to see. You do not want to see, oh, he got bipartisan support. Not a good sign at all. I don't know why Donald Trump wouldn't come out and he wouldn't mention the motive, and why he wouldn't try and push the Democrats to try and like get them to acknowledge that, yeah, your rhetoric is the cause. This is what happens when you have all of this rhetoric that you've been talking about for the longest time, and you just don't calm down. It's always just Russian agent, Putin puppet, and they say all these things. They say, oh yeah, you guys are gonna kill millions with your healthcare plan. You're gonna kill Americans, and they just casually say like, oh yeah, Republicans are just they're just out there to screw over the people. That's all they do. That's their goal. They just say that like casually, not that they're opponents that have different ideas and that they're trying to do the best for the people, but maybe they just don't go about it the right way. No, they just casually say, oh yeah, they're like a hostile power. They're like a hostile power trying to ruin the country. They say that casually, and they say that over and over again in the media and with the Democrat, their talking points. So that's the reason why we have things like this happening, attacks like this. And I don't want to hear anyone saying that they don't know the motive, or that you can't politicize this, because it was politicized from the beginning.